Hi, this is Don, K2PMC. Today I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to show you how my station is set up, the commercial software that I use, and also the software that I've written, and how it all fits together. I hope you enjoy the video. The Yaesu FTDX-5000 is the centerpiece of my station. It's a great radio, but it is missing one feature that I really have come to appreciate. And that is that it does not have a panadapter that will enable you to see all the signals on the band. So one of the things I wanted to do was to incorporate that feature into the DX5000. This is the LP-PAN2 panadapter. This panadapter was developed by Larry Phipps, N8LP. It's available through his website at telepostinc.com. The LP-PAN2 is the heart of the whole SDR system. Hookup is easy. The left and right channel, seen on the right, comes from the sound card. The IF input connector comes from the 9 MHz IF output jack of the DX5000. The other piece of the puzzle is the sound card. I want to make a distinction between the sound card you use for digital modes like PSK or Olivia and the sound card you need for the panadapter. This sound card is one that would be used more for stereo audio applications. There are a bunch of them out there that can be used. The one I chose is the Zonar U5, spelled X-O-N-A-R. It's made by Asus. I did some research and the guys using it had good reports on it, so that's the one I decided to go with. As you can see, there are only two connections. The one on the right is the microphone input coming from the LP-PAN2, and the one on the left is the USB cable going to my computer. Well, this is the program that brings it all together. It's called NAP3. The program was written by Pete, Fox 5, Victor, November, Bravo. And what you're looking at here is a part of the 40-meter CW band. Just turn it up a little bit. And I'm at 7023. Here's the signal up about 7035. We'll click on him. So you can see I've got a good picture of the spectrum. There's a guy up here at 7047, could be W1AW. So this gives you a good idea as to how the whole thing comes together. Now, it's quite possible, in fact, it's probable, that you're gonna have more than one piece of software want to communicate with your radio. Your radio has a single COM port. So the way you're going to circumvent that problem, at least the way I've done it, is by a piece of software called the Virtual Serial Port Emulator, VSPE. VSPE is a product of Ether Logic, E-T-E-R Logic. I believe it's free for a 32-bit system. I'm running a 64-bit system, and if I'm not mistaken, I think it was a $25 one-time charge, but I've been using it for so long I really don't remember. It's either going to be free or there may be a charge of $25. But here's how easy it is to set up, okay? Now, the radio is physically connected to COM 11 on my system. Okay. Now, what you do with VSPE is you set up a device called a splitter. Okay, I'm gonna show you what a splitter looks like. Okay, a splitter basically lets multiple applications, multiple clients communicate through a virtual port to a single COM port. So I just arbitrarily set COM 16 up as my virtual COM port. So this is saying COM 11 is now pointed to COM 16. Going back to NAP3, here's my Yaesu 5000. Notice I have COM 16 set up as my communications port. So that's how the NAP3 software is communicating with my radio. Now on this screen, I'm going to show you how the NAP3 program and the logging system interact. Now, NAP3 is sitting at 14.013, and there is the frequency of 14.013 in the logging system. If I change the frequency in NAP3, you'll see that the logging system stays in sync with the NAP3 program. Now, the logging system is also communicating at this time with the Yaesu 5000. Now, if you see here, it's showing that the power is set at 50 watts. Now, if I adjust the power on the Yaesu, okay, you can see I've now increased the power to 100 watts. So the logging system is communicating with NAP3 and also communicating with the DX5000. All this is being done via VSPE and virtual serial port 16. Pardon me. The CW program is also communicating with the DX5000 and also with the logging system. I'll show you that in a little while. Okay, now let's see how the Morse machine software fits into the whole system here. This is a piece of software that I wrote that controls the MM3 Morse machine. The MM3 Morse machine has a very, very robust command language, so that anything that you can do via the external controls on the MM3, you can also do via programming. So I can send keyboard CW, for example, or I've got a paddle in parallel with that, which I can send CW also. Now the CW program also communicates with the logging system, and it controls, as I said, the Morse machine. Now, the method in which it communicates with the logging system is different. The logging system and CW program communicate via a method called dynamic data exchange, and basically they're sending vital information back and forth between each other. For example, if I'm say I'm working a station, let's just say this fellow calls me, okay, WB3AAI, okay. Now that information is sent to the logging system via dynamic data exchange, and it went back into my file and found that we worked Lou. Here's the number of times we've worked Lou in the past, okay, and it also shows me if we have had any notes, okay, and what I like to do is I like to keep a record of the QSO we have. So what you see in yellow is information that I've keyed in, I've typed in, that Lou has sent me. The information in the light blue is my sending back to Lou via the keyboard. So now I have a complete chronology of our QSOs, okay, and then each QSO then is timestamped, so I know which point in time these comments refer to, okay? So that is the way the logging system and the CW program communicate. It occurred to me that not everyone may be familiar with the AEA MM3 Morse machine. Well, here's a picture of it. The MM3 was developed by a company called Advanced Electronics Applications. I believe they were out of Linwood, Washington. The MM3 was first produced around 1989 and production continued into the 90s. AEA was purchased in 2001 and was renamed AEA Technology. The focus of the company was then redirected away from amateur radio to the commercial market. The Morse machine was truly a product that was ahead of its time. The standard machine came with 8K of buffer memory and had 7 programmable modes of operation. It could be used as a CW trainer, a contest or a QSO simulator, a beacon, and others. It also had a built-in ASCII to Morse converter, which simply stated would take an ASCII character sent from a computer and convert it to a perfectly spaced Morse code character. It also contained a robust command language, which meant it could be completely controlled via commands sent from a host computer. Check it out on eham.net. Just look at the reviews and you'll see some of the comments made by the proud owners of this old machine. Now let's go back to the CW program. As you can see, I've got the power set at 190 watts. Now in my situation here, I have a long run of coax. I have a little over 100 feet of coax running from my antennas out in the back into the shack. So I have a remote tuner sitting out there. Now, if I were to hit the tune button, I certainly don't want to have 190 watts going through the remote tuner. So the CW program is also communicating to the Yaesu via COM port 16. So when I hit the tune button, the CW program is going to reduce the power to the Yaesu to 10 watts. And then when I untune it, it will restore the power to whatever it was previously set to. So I'll hit the tune. You see the power is 10 watts. Done with the tune, okay? And it restores the power back to 190 watts. That way, if I don't have to worry about cutting the power back. And this was one of the features that I added in because sorry to say, I will admit there were a couple of occasions when I hit the tune button and I was running a little more than 10 watts. So here you have an AP3, the logging program and the CW program all communicating to the Yaesu via a single virtual serial port into a live USB port, in that case USB 11. Okay, so much for the HF, CW, and sideband setup on the Yaesu. Now I'm going to switch over to my digital station. I keep an ICOM IC-7000 set in digital mode all the time. That way I don't have to mess around with cabling and changing parameters and stuff like that. You can see the Signalink USB sound card and the device to the left of the ICOM with the blue ring. That's a little Bluetooth speaker that I use for audio out. It's not connected via Bluetooth. It's running right off the speaker jack on the IC-7000, and the actual IC-7000 is down beneath the desk. This is just a control head. Now let's look at the digital software. I use a Ham Radio Deluxe suite of programs, so let's start out with the main control program. Okay. Now, if you'll notice, I also have the Yaesu configured to run with Ham Radio Deluxe via COM port 16. But here's the ICOM running or set up to run from COM port 3, which is a real COM port. So let's just connect. Okay, and there we are. Now we're set up with the ICOM IC-7000. The power is set at 24 watts. It's actually around 20 watts. Ham Radio Deluxe is a very powerful suite of programs, and it has a lot of functionality. I'm certainly not going to cover much of it tonight. I'm going to focus on strictly the digital portion, and more specifically, let's start out with macros. And the macros are a very powerful part of Digital Master 780. Now, if you look over here, you have a tab labeled Tags. If you click on that, it's very important that you fill this out, and you'll see why later. You put your call sign, your name, your age, your locator, your QTH, your email address, if you have a home page for your own website, if you belong to a radio club. Here you put your radio, your antenna, your power, what kind of computer you're running, what your interface is. Now, the reason you want to fill this out is because when you go to use your macros, it makes generating macros much, much simpler. Okay, let's look at an example. Okay, here's the macro. It's plain. It's the CQ macro. All right. Now it says CQ. Now instead of you saw K2PMC here, K2PMC portable 4. Okay. But when you look at the actual macro, it's saying my call sign. Okay. So what DM780 does is he takes, when he recognizes this particular macro command called my call sign, he goes into the tag file, and whatever you have recorded in call sign, he places in its place. Okay. Let's look at the call, what I call him. This is if I hear a guy calling CQ. I want to call him back. So it says, your call, DE, K2PMC, K2PMC. Now, the your call is filled in here. If I put a call, for example, WB2ELW, okay, now you'll notice in the your call field it says WB2ELW. Okay. Again, if you look at the macro says his call sign, his call sign. Where does he get his call sign from? He gets it from this field in the DM780 program. Now here you have answer RST. Okay, well let's go here. If we look at the macro, it's going to say, hello man, pleasure meeting you. Your report is 559. Name here is Don, the QTH and everything else. Well, where's it getting that information from? I'll show you right now. Okay, his call sign is coming from the call field. My call sign is coming from the tag file. His name is coming from this field here. Your report is sent, it's coming from the send, where I have 559. Name here is my name, that's coming from the tag file. And the QTH, my QTH, is coming from the tag file. My locator is coming from the tag file. So how copy, his name is coming from this name field here. His call sign coming from there. And my call sign coming from the tag file. Now erase erases the transmit window and stops. Okay. Now, let's look at the tags down here. My tags refer to my data. His tags refers to his data. So if I want to send something from the accessories in the tag file, if I want to send my age, antenna, whatever, those are all of the macros that are available to me. If I want to include macros of his back to him, these are the macros that I can send back to him. Okay. These are special macros. One that's used every time is your add QSO macro. You put that at the end of your transmission. As I'll show you that in the 73 macro here. If you look at the 73 macro, right there. Add log, adds it to the log, stop, says stop transmitting. Then you have erase transmit window. If you want to do that, erase receive window. And there are times when you want to do that also. Now, here's something I hadn't mentioned, which is important. Sometimes when you develop a macro, you want to send it immediately. For example, let's go back to the CQ macro. Okay? Well, you want to send CQ right away. So if you'll notice in the CQ macro, I have send immediately. So the minute I click on macro 1 or on the keyboard type in control 1, which is the same as macro 1, it is going to send whatever's in macro 1 immediately. Okay? And I'm telling it to start on a new line. So would there ever be a case where I would have a macro that I don't want to send immediately? Well, yes, there is. For example, macro number 9 was one that I used at the beginning of my transmission. So I type in macro 9, but I don't want to start sending immediately because he's still sending to me, and I'm going to be putting data in down here. So if we look at macro 9, okay, all I'm doing is I'm sending his call sign from my call sign. Now, if you notice, the send immediately box is not checked, but I do have it start on a new line. Now, in the case where I'm going to call him, okay, I certainly want to start transmitting right away. I want to call him. So, if you notice, I've checked send immediately. I've said start on a new line. And when I'm done, erase the transmit window. So that's what's going to happen when I do macro number 2. Well, let's look at the brag file. Okay, here's the brag file. Okay, this is where I'm telling the other fellow the various equipment that I have. So here's all the information, and most of this is coming right out of the tags file. I'm saying his first name. Here's a rundown of my equipment. Little header, K2PMC station. The radio, my radio power, my antenna, my computer, my interface. Software, DM780, and my aids there. Now, if you notice, I don't have send immediately checked because this would be in the body of my transmission. So in other words, I would put his call, and then I might send the brag file. Okay, so here I have the beginning of the return. I might type something in here. I might say something like let's put a name in here so that it'll come up. Let's put Joe in here just for the heck of it. If I can type right. Okay. So I would say okay, Joe, solid print. Okay. And then I could say, Joe, here, if you notice in my macro, I had his name, so it automatically put that in there. Joe, here's a rundown of my equipment, and there is all of my equipment that I have. Okay, so you can see now there are times when you would want to send it immediately, times when you would not want to send it immediately. Now you might have noticed, as I've been talking, there was a QSO going on right on the frequency, and I purposely left that on there so that I could show you where you could get some of this information. Okay, so let's say you hear a fella calling CQ. Okay, and here's a guy right here, K4SUE. So if I double click on that, well, that's nice. If I double click on that and then highlight it, do a right click and go to call sign, DM780 will automatically put his call sign in there. Okay. Now, and this may jump around because he's transmitting. He was transmitting also. Okay, here's his name. His name is Dave, so I'll highlight that, do a right click, click on name, and you'll notice Dave appears here. Okay. And here's his QTH. It's Charleston, South Carolina. Highlight that, right click it, put it in QTH. Now, there's no place on this line for QTH, but if you click the add log entry, you'll see there's his QTH. Okay, there's his name, there's his call. So that's all set up. Of course, you can also type his name in there if you're so inclined, but it's easier to just double click and highlight and then right click it. So that's how you would fill in that part of the information. Now I'm going to cover a very important item. It's called the Reed-Solomon ID. Here it is right here, RSID. What is the RSID? Now, with all the digital modes we have on today, for example, PSK31 is quite distinctive. It's very narrow, so you can see a PSK31 signal and know what it is. That's about the only signal that you could identify that way. All the other ones are warbly tones. Some of them are narrow width, some of them are wide width. You really don't know what you're looking at or what you're listening to. The Reed-Solomon ID is the key to solving that problem. What you should do is always click the Reed-Solomon ID on. It will send the RSID ahead of your signal. So that means anyone listening to you will get a little pop-up window that will identify your signal as, in this case, it would be Olivia 8250 because that is what we're set at right now. Otherwise, the fellow on the other end would be fumbling around doing all kinds of clicking, trying to find out what the heck you were transmitting in. And you would be transmitting and not getting any calls back because they didn't know what mode you're using. So the Reed-Solomon ID is very important, and that's its use, and all you have to do is click that on. Now I'm going to show you a very handy feature, one that I use all the time. It's called the timed repeat feature. If you'll notice here in the middle, the repeat is grayed out. To the left of it, you've got the little alarm clock. In order to use the repeat feature, you have to set a time interval. So you click on the little down arrow, and what this does, this sets an interval of time that you will wait for someone to come back to your CQ. In this case, I've set 15 seconds, okay? So when I call CQ, okay, now I'm going to stop it right now. But you'll notice I don't have an erase command because I don't want to erase this window just in case I don't get a call. I don't want to have to keep entering that information. But if I get a call, of course I want to erase this information. So you do a right click and you do erase all, now your window is set to go. And you can come back with your answer RST command if you have his signal report in there, or if you don't want to give him a report this time, you can send the no RST command. One more thing, if someone calls you, make sure you click off the repeat function. Otherwise, DM780 will continue to transmit whatever is in the transmit window, and you sure don't want that. Well, by no means was that a complete review of Ham Radio Deluxe or DM780, but I hope I touched on some of the gray areas, maybe some of the areas that might have been causing some confusion with respect to the digital modes. So if you like this video, give me a thumbs up. Comments are always appreciated. And thank you for watching. This is Don saying 73s and see you on the bands.